Hey everyone, it's Steven from Tostemac alongside my mom, Miss Ellen.
Hi everyone.
Today I want to take some time to talk about how 2020 has been so far. More like a honest conversation, or just take some time to get some things off my chest, because 2020 has been an absolute train wreck so far.
I'll drink to that.
And what makes it so worse for me personally is because this was supposed to be the year that I make a name for myself. I was going to go to all these events, meet these fantastic people, get some projects off the ground, but then 2020 is like, nope, that's not happening.
Not that either.
Yeah, so going back to the beginning, how exactly did 2020 begin? So what was the first major thing that happened?
New Year's Eve. It showed up.
No. You got to go past New Year's Eve.
Oh. Gentleman by the name of Mr. COVID showed up.
Yeah, COVID-19, or what it used to be called coronavirus. Maybe it was like a marketing issue or something. But this virus had been something... Oh, damn it, sorry.
That's what 2020 has done to him. So let me tell you. So the COVID showed up, and we weren't ready for it.
Yeah, we haven't really seen a virus like this, or a pandemic like this, for over 100 years. Not since the Spanish flu, so understandably we weren't as ready as we thought we were. Mm-hmm. And it has spread all across the world, and we're still dealing with it several months later. Mm-hmm. And obviously a lot of people are seriously sick. A lot of people have died because of COVID-19. But the other thing that this pandemic is doing is how it's drastically affecting us as a society.
Mm-hmm. We're witnessing some of the best and the worst of human nature. Unfortunately, the news media tends to like to demonstrate and show us the worst of humanity.
Well, it's like in my workplace, and I'm sure in your workplace, I've seen a few genuine good acts here and there. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, oh, this person was a really nice guy. I mean, that was a really nice thing for him or her to do, and I'm pretty sure you've seen some good instances.
Yeah, as a frontline caregiver, I'm out seeing patients every single day. And, I still have faith in humanity, because I still get to witness those kinds of acts where a neighbor helps a neighbor, a stranger helps a stranger. It's still out there. Unfortunately, the media is not showing that. And as a result of which, because all we're seeing on the TV is how ugly we can be, what that's doing is giving permission to others to maybe continue in this behavior, because they're getting the permission like, oh, well, he got away with it and she got away with it. I can too.
Well, it's not just that, but I feel like the news media outlets are just trying their best to stay relevant in an age where we could just look up whatever news we need without the mainstream media outlets. Like, we could just look up articles. Like, every night before I go to bed, I type in coronavirus news, look at various sites, mm-hmm. like aside from the main ones, to figure out, okay, what's going on, what improvements are being made, what are some setbacks, stuff mm-hmm. like that.
But see, you're not seeing, like, for example, here in Colorado Springs where we live, there's a lady that I work with, and she owns a farm. Well, one of the greatest institutions that is being severely impacted by this coronavirus are the assisted livings, the nursing homes, and of that genre. And so what's happening is a lot of these patients are in these facilities, and they haven't seen their family members in 2 and 3 months. So someone like this lady, Anne, of her own expense and her own desire, takes her farm animals, specifically the babies, and she takes them around so that the people, no matter if they're on the first floor, the second, or the 13th floor, they can look out their window and see these beautiful animals. So there is some good coming out there.
And you did touch on a certain note that certain friends and family members aren't able to see each other, and like they're not even able to go to a bunch of places that they usually like to go to, like their favorite restaurants or workout places. In fact, a lot of workout places, along with other facilities, have actually either remained closed or even gone as far as file for bankruptcy.
That's right.
Which is
right.
kind of scary to think about because we didn't think so many would go out of business so soon. But the other thing is that we're touching on is how it's affecting how we interact with each other. Because usually we're like out and about all over the place, but now there's these new precautions where you have to limit how many people go inside a building. Everyone has to wear a face mask or should wear a face mask. And also like no huge social gatherings and stuff like that. And that's not really something the American people are used to.
Even the ability to go see your doctor. How many of you have needed a doctor and the best you're going to get is a telephonic visit where you're talking on the phone? Or if you need to show them something, you have to show them a picture of whatever it is that you need.
Well, yeah, with the pandemic, those that are really essential, like nurse care and doctors, they can't really take that risk considering what's been going around out there.
They can, but there's limits as to what they can do. The other thing we're witnessing is a lot of, and we just had a relative where their loved one is in a nursing home and their loved one dies and they can't even go to see the person, they can't have a funeral, and they can't even go see them being buried. So COVID is impacting us financially, emotionally, spiritually. It's impacting our entire lives. And that's not something the American people are used to. We're free spirits. We want to do what we want to do, when we want to do it, and how we want to do it. And unfortunately, today we're learning a whole new way of a new norm.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily go that far. Now, granted, even after this pandemic's over, things are not going to be the same. That's for sure. Like the place I work at, they put in a few measures that are not going to go away even after the pandemic's over. But I wouldn't go as far as saying this is the new norm. Things will change after the pandemic's over. Now, granted, we won't get back to the old norm where we used to have before, but things are going to change. Like, we may still have we may have large group gatherings again. Maybe we'll have full restaurants full of customers again. But there are going to be
time.
Well, that and there's going to be a lot of changes to be put into place to make sure people can get back to it as safely as possible. Now, mind you, the government's trying to take measures right now to lock down certain places, advise people to wear masks, stay home if you're sick, stuff like that. And again, as you mentioned, the American people are not used to it, and
they're not liking it.
Right, but what they need to understand is this is necessary to get over this pandemic.
And the thing I want to make sure everybody understands, when this started, we were very worried about people my age. Or people with comorbidities. Yeah, you should worry about me. Just keep that as a note. However...
Excuse me! Hold on a minute. We should still worry about those in the elderly brackets because at the place I work at, there are still a bunch of customers that go through that are not wearing a face mask. And I kid you not, the majority of the time, it's the elderly people. And I'm just thinking to myself, what are you doing? You're in the bracket. You're in the bracket that we're worried about the most. Why aren't you wearing a face mask?
Okay, so let me explain a little bit of that. It is true. There are quite a few people, but what I originally was saying was COVID is now non-discriminatory. It's going to all races, all ages, all economic strata, okay? So that is no longer a situation. Everybody is at risk, and we need to understand that. Now, there is a certain amount of the population that have lung disease, and when you add a mask onto that, it makes it even more difficult for them to breathe. Now, I am not, by any stretch of the imagination, excusing them because they are contributing to the problem. But I see equal, if not more, young people your age coming into stores and going to places, and they're not wearing a mask either. Okay, so Stephen, one example that I just saw today, the building that I work in, or one of the buildings I work in, is a medical building. And there was a young lady, and she looked to be about 7 or 8 months pregnant. She walks right into this medical building, no mask, no nothing. Obviously very pregnant. And on the door to the building, it says, you must wear a mask. So you see, this problem of masks, no masks, it's across the generations, it's across the cultures, it's across the financial structures. It's not just one particular group that's doing that. There's a lot of people out there that believe I shouldn't have to wear a mask, just some old person isn't going to die. And that's unfortunate, but that is a reality. So each of us have to get up each morning and make a choice. Am I going to protect me? And am I going to protect you? And wearing a mask.
Well, not only that, but I've actually seen quite a few videos here and there where it's like you see these fully grown adults who are not wearing a mask, are recorded in the store not wearing a mask, and they basically are reduced to children. Like there was one video a while back I saw where a fully grown woman was just like tossing things out of her cart here and there, just tossing around in random directions like a 5-year-old, and just like bolted out the door. I kid you not, that's what actually happened. So
I've never seen that.
Yeah.
The thing is, we don't know how to behave with this, and it's a learning curve, and we're all learning. We need to support each other, we need to help each other, but the premise of this particular video was how 2020 is affecting all of us. So what we've seen so far, it's July now, and we've seen that it has brought out some good in people. Unfortunately, again, the media is focusing on the bad it's bringing out.
But we can't deny that it is bringing out a lot of bad in people. Like, we hear about these situations on like movies or TV shows or maybe a novel that you and Dad like to read. And in those situations, a lot of us like to think to ourselves, well, I wouldn't do this in situation A, I would do B and C instead. But then the actual situation comes around, then all of a sudden we're seeing a bunch of people do these terrible things. And some of us think to ourselves, wait a minute, isn't that exactly how it happened to that one movie? Or was it worse than how it happened in the TV series?
So what we need to do is we all need to make a decision, ladies and gentlemen. Are you going to be part of the problem? Or are you going to be part of the solution? You know, I'm a nurse. I'm on the front lines. I'm seeing sick people every day. I'm seeing people in some horrible conditions every day. And you're right. I'm one person. I can't save the world. But for maybe one person, I can save their world. What's your decision?
Yeah, it's not exactly a easy decision to make. And sometimes making the right choice involves making tough decisions. But it is necessary if we're going to get past this. Now, of course, the COVID-19 isn't the only thing that happened. It's not the only thing that we need to address.
Unfortunately, there is an incident. I almost don't have to say names because I know you figured it out. We have a police officer who is apprehending someone. His actions are inexcusable. The way he went about his business cost the life of a man. Now, I don't know much about George Floyd other than what the news is telling us. And, you know, on this hand, I'm going to hear good stuff. On this hand, I'm going to hear bad stuff. But he was someone that somebody loved. Nobody deserves, I don't care what you're doing, that kind of treatment.
Yeah, nobody deserved what happened to George Floyd. And again, we don't know who he is, and maybe it's not even in our right to know. Maybe maybe the only people that need to know who he really is his family. Exactly. So it's not in our position or any other outsider's position to pry into his business.
But the coin here. Let's flip the coin. It wasn't just one police officer on the scene.
There were actually
many others. And they made a decision. Remember earlier I said, each of us every morning have to get up and make a decision. Are we going to be part of the problem or part of the solution? Now, I'm not ever going to judge the other police officers. You know, there's judges out there, there's courts, there's attorneys. They're going to take care of that. I don't have to make that judgment call. But see, a lot of people are very, very angry about what happened because it's not the first time this has happened.
Well, exactly. If you think about it, we as a whole society have seen this cycle happen. Sorry, you're just... My thoughts are all over the place.
He can't talk either.
Okay, stop. Okay. So, if you think about it, all of us in our history have seen this cycle happen before, where a cop kills an African American, people get upset about it, and there are protests and riots. Mm-hmm. Eventually things start to calm down, and then another cop kills an African American, then all of a sudden we're back to square one all over again. Right. And this particular incident really hurt it lit the fuse, and it hurt all of us really bad because I thought we were better than this now. We are taught all the way since elementary school, we are taught that racism is bad, prejudice is bad. Don't judge a book by its cover, accept a person for who they are, not what they have. Mm-hmm. Then, all of a sudden, this comes along and it makes us question, what exactly have we learned?
Well, the problem is, it's putting a huge tear in the fabric of our society.
Well, not only that, but not just society, but also law enforcement, the police officers. In fact, a while back, I made a video where I'm basically defending the police officers, basically trying to put the viewers into the police officer's shoes. And I could provide an info card for that, where it's like, here's some of the things that the officers have to go through every single day when they're out on the field, and here are some things they could implement to improve their situation. So when I'm seeing certain hashtags or articles like defund the police, no, you don't need to go that far. You don't need to get rid of the police system as a whole. What you need to do is reform the police. Put in a system where instead of like maybe a couple months of training, they have 2 to 4 years of training, kind of like getting a university degree. In fact, if memory serves correctly, there are other parts of the world where they train an officer for several years before they let that officer out into the field.
Well, and there's a couple other things. First off, police are people just like the rest of us.
Exactly.
There's good ones, and then there's bad ones, okay? One of the things that I would actually prefer to see happen, you know, again, everybody knows I'm a nurse. So I educated, and I obtained a license. But in order for me to maintain that license, every single year, I have to take what's called continuing education. And amongst that is training every single year in diversity. So instead of, and I agree with Stephen, don't defund the police, but maybe take some of those funds, license the police, have them to take annual trainings. And I don't mean paper trainings. They don't do us paper trainings. We have to go in the field. We have to experience things. And perhaps, you know, a little bit of mental health evaluations as well as training for those officers might help this situation. But right now, the situation we're in, there's a lot of anger on both sides of this. And they're all understandable. Everybody is speaking their truth. What we all need to do, ladies and gentlemen, we need to stop. We need to listen to their truth. Because everybody's truth will ring true to us at some point in time. But if we're so busy talking and we're not listening, this situation's not going to get better. As a matter of fact, it's going to get much, much worse until we stop destroying and fighting and start listening to each other, because that's where we're going to learn where the pain is and what we need to do to fix this.
That being said, we also have to talk about the other part of this issue, that being the protests and the riots.
Right. Now, protests, those are our rights. We have the right to speak up when we know something is wrong, we see something's wrong, we hear something wrong. It's actually our obligation. It's our responsibility. And I firmly agree with that.
In a way, protests are actually encouraged because, yes, it is within our rights, but I feel like those are one of the biggest ways to get an opinion or like a voice out there. Now, I know that current rules and restrictions would advise against large gatherings or large groupings, and I agree with why, but I also agree with the reasons why these protests had to happen. Something terrible has occurred. It was a terrible injustice, for lack of a better word, and unless people talk about it, things are not going to get better. So I completely agree with the need for those protests.
Right. But see,
Now,
Stephen, there's something that's a problem now. See, Martin Luther King is probably one of the best known for leading protests, but he believed in peaceful protests. He believed in making his voice louder than the actions, because he knew if he was going to win over the majority of the population, he had to get the message. The message had to be the most important. But see, when you take a protest and you bump it up to the next level, which is a riot, and you start doing destructive things, the problem is your message isn't going to make it across as well, because where does the attention go? It goes to the damage that it's incurring. It goes to the people whose businesses are destroyed. It goes to the people who lost jobs. It goes to the people who were injured and or killed. You see, the message doesn't make it as well. So for those of you that are hurting so bad, and I know you are, please remember, you want your message to get across because you have a very valid point, and we've got to hear it. But when you go about destroying property, now, I was in the last Baltimore, the big riot, Stephen. I was actually in a patient's home. It was an apartment right above where the riot had happened in Baltimore. And I was with this family. It was a lady and her two sons, and her sons were in the 20s. And so we heard all the commotion kicking up, and we looked out the window, and these two men, these two black men who had lived there their entire lives, they turned around to me and they said, "Now, Miss Allen, I done lived here my whole life. Ain't nobody down here from our hood."
Now that does bring up an important point. And there was another quote, and I think this might have been from Martin Luther King as well. A certain quote that says, riots are the voice of the unheard.
Correct.
So in a sense, it's the most extreme way of getting your voice out there to represent the anger and frustration. That part I can understand in riots. But the other thing that you just mentioned is that a lot of times with these riots, many of the instigators for those riots are not
the locals.
They're not the locals. They're not part of the affected party. In a sense, they're just people looking to stir things up, cause some damage, and get away with some free stuff.
Well, and the reality is, let's be honest, if I'm angry at my neighbor, am I going to damage his property or my property? Because see, that's what's happening. Those of us that live in Denver, in Colorado Springs, in Baltimore, in New York City, why would we damage what we ourselves are now going to have to pay to repair? We're going to lose our businesses. We're going to lose our jobs. We're going to lose our homes. I mean, there's so much that rolls out from that. Whereas if we kept it at the riot level, and let's talk, but more important, Stephen, we need to listen.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been to Baltimore, but I do know that a lot of people that live in Baltimore are very proud of the place they live in and would never
Absolutely.
want to trash
No.
their own place.
They
So
worked very hard at building that area. It's the same. I come from New York City. You know, it took a lot of sweat, blood, and tears to get the New York City to where it is. Baltimore, Denver, all these big cities. The locals worked very, very hard. They're proud of where they live, and they should be.
and I can't imagine the news was easy to watch when you saw a lot of the destruction that was being caused in New York as well. Like, there was some looting there too.
Oh, it was horrible. I watched an old pizzeria that I frequented just decimated. And for what? Because that's not what people are going to remember. They're not going to remember the why. They're going to remember that that pizzeria was decimated. So, what we're trying to say is here, 2020 has been a very rough year. People being caused to have to stay in their homes when they're not used to it. You know, as you guys know, 2 of my sons have autism. And one of the things that's very important to the autistic community is routine for a majority of these people. And here, we're breaking routine. People that used to go to jobs, all of a sudden they're home 24/7. That's not normal. So now you got mental health and stress on top of that.
Yeah, and we're not safe from that either, because, like, thankfully Dad's still working. He's working online now, and you try to work home when you can, but a lot of times you have to go out.
I'm out there with you
And
guys.
I'm still going out there, but Thomas, my younger brother and the co-host of Tostemac, you probably know him by now.
The funny one.
Ha ha ha! I forgot how to laugh. But
He'll teach
it's
you.
affecting Thomas as well because he's not able to go out as much as he wants.
Go to school.
And, you know,
meet up with
interacting
friends.
with people. Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're not safe from this either. We're all dealing with the same thing. We're all in the same boat trying to stop said boat from sinking.
So what we have to do, ladies and gentlemen, we have to help each other. And the best way we can do that right now is stop. Put your mask on. Close your mouth. Listen. You'll be amazed at what you're going to hear.
Yeah. Man, I really needed to make this video. I mean, listening is important, but every now and then you just gotta let off some steam and just let off some frustration because a lot of the stuff I planned had gotten canceled. And we're just seeing a lot of the ugliness in people right now. And a lot of us are, if not all of us, are just, at this point, just waiting for the light at the end of the tunnel.
And guys, there is a light at the tunnel. It's not going to be like it was in 2018, 2016, or whatever. It's going to be a different light. But you know what? Hang on there. It's coming. Help your neighbors. Help your friends. But more importantly, help that stranger. Because you don't know that maybe next week it's you that needs that help.
And on that note, it's time to end this video. I know it's a lot longer than usual, but again, I needed to take out my frustration and, you know, just voice my honest opinion. So I want to thank you very much for taking time to watch this video. Mm-hmm. And I've made a bunch of other videos regarding COVID-19. I can leave a link to the playlist in the description down below. And so help me, I gotta shut that phone off. And
My phone.
next week, I want to do another COVID-19 video, as much as I didn't want to, in regards to the importance of face masks as well as some alternatives. So, hope you look forward to that next week. Thank you very much for watching, and stay safe out there.
Bye.
Man, if I had a drink for every time I had to say stay safe out there lately, I'd have a serious hangover. No, thank you. I don't know where that's been.
I do. Love you, Stephen.
Love you too, Mom.
Bye-bye.